Hello, this is Max Drake. I'd just like to talk about this app, and then I'd like to go into the background of how I sort of started to moving towards making it, and some of the other ideas are from other people in the Glide community and other areas as well. First of all, I have a Patreon site. I'd love it if you'd consider signing up to it, but I'd like to thank Gustavo Mastro Buoni, I can't quite say that, and so thank you very much for signing up, Gustavo, a great name. Okay, back to this app here. So this is the first one, which is a location app, and if I just smack on the location, it gives me my current location. There we go, pop up, and there we are there. So we can actually see where I am and where other little features are around. So we can actually go into the location and look at some of the other ones that are through there. And I've just put in 5 items. This is just a proof of concept. So I can use my current location here. And if I just use this switch, which is the new one there, get back to it, it will then take my location and put it into the sheet. I can then choose somewhere to go to. At this point in time, I'm actually going to use the Petone Dog Park because I did a rather daffy thing on that one. And then I can choose my method or mode of transport to get there. Like I could choose a car, but in fact, in this particular case, I actually want to choose a cycle just for the exercise for this. I then get a URL through here. If I've got one from somewhere else, I'm just going to choose one per Peru Aquatic Centre. You'll see this will change. And this is actually the name of the aquatic centre in Terreo in Maui. And so anyway, we're going back to the Petone Beach because that one amuses me. And I'm a man of entertained very easy, that one. So we look at that, we actually just wallop on that link, and it takes us to Google Maps, and there we actually are. Now, when I actually did the pin for that, I was actually just thinking of a location, but somehow I ended up with the pin just on the public toilets. What a good shot. I'd take the dog there to walk when I have the dog. So now when you're actually in Google Maps, this has got there, I can actually say, oh well, how long to walk, and it takes me a different route, and it's actually got it by ferry. Now, inside the options, you can actually suddenly say, in the options type things, if it's a distant one, you can actually say no motorways or something. So this has now said no ferries, so it's got to find a different method to actually get me there. This is the main state highway, so there should be a pedestrian along there. And it's got a few other features that I'll talk about later as far as Google Maps goes. So that's the app that does it. It's basically you can find a place and you can do it. One thing that I just want to point out here, at the moment I've got that as a pedestrian. So if I actually want that as a car, I'll put that as 0 and go enter. So the very last numeric suddenly says what your mode of transport is through there. So if we just go through and look at the actual app itself, on the GPS page or the main page, I've actually just got the lookup. So I've got the places where I've got an image attached to them of some description, and I've got a lat long with a comma in between, and GlideApp reads that and puts a marker onto the map. And here I've just split these out using split, and it just takes the latitude and longitude and puts them into adjoining cells based on what you're splitting against. I'm splitting against the comma, so that just is the divider that goes through there. So if we go to the get there place, I've actually got where am I, so that's my current location that comes in and drops into that point in time. Then I've got the method of transport, whether it's walking, cycling, transit, which would be bus and trains, etc. And then those are the numbers that go on the end of my code. So this is a typical string that you would have. I've just taken the H out the front so it doesn't trigger. And so if we actually look at this, at the first point there's a little bit of a HTTPS, google.com maps.dir. Then it actually has the start point, then it actually has a /, then it has the end point or the destination, and then it has a slash, and then it has an @ and then it has this other coordinate through there. When I was looking at this coordinate, it seems to be almost like the center of the map type thing. Then it has some stuff like it's got 14Z here, and I think that's the zoom factor that is for the map, with some data and then some odd little bits of annotation all the way through here. Then it comes through and then it ends up with the longitude of the start point and the latitude of the start point, and then right at the very end it has a number, so that number equates to the travel number or the method of travel. So all we then do is actually just concatenate all of those together, and we get that. So that one calls the start point, that one calls the end point that we've got through the selection, where we've gone down that choose and we've chosen a specific location, and when we've chosen that location we just return the coordinates of where that is. This other one through here, what I've done at this point in time is I've split the start point into latitude and longitude. I've split the end point there, latitude and longitude, and then what I've done here is that I've got the absolute of this minus this, just to make sure it doesn't become negative, and the same with the longitude as well. And then I take the original latitude and then I halve the difference between the two, just so that I can get a centroid, because I think this is something like the centroid of the map of where it zooms to. So that's what I'm doing through there. Anyway, it works, so that's what I do. So, and it just does a basic concatenation all the way through there, and then it just punches up and then shows that. So that's a way that it can actually do the calculation and show you, and then gives a link to the map. So simple enough in a way, although I actually been on a very long journey to get to this point. I initially started on this one with, I did some videos, 3 videos on using App Inventor. An App Inventor is a sort of a plug little modules that you put together, and but that can use the sensors off an Android phone. So I use the sensors on the Android phone and I push that information to Google Sheets. Now I could then manipulate that data in Google Sheets, and then I could display that in GlideApps, which is what actually happens here. So that was the idea behind the actual app through there. And then I did 3 of those things just to do it, and then there was a bit of date time issue or something that I had to resolve. So that was the idea with that particular app. But I wasn't happy, and the reason why was in that particular one I talk about a bit of JavaScript, and the JavaScript is this geolocation get current position, which is just a call that you make. And I've been doing some React apps where I was actually using this in some of the coding that I was doing in that. So I was suddenly thinking, well, why do I actually have to go to App Inventor to get this location? Why can't I do that in GlideApps? And in GlideApps at the time, they had the embedded give you your location, but that was embedded inside their code and you couldn't access it. Now, just recently, as in the last couple of days, David from Glide has sent this email around to everybody, suddenly saying, well, one, it's got a signature component, that's new, and then with location component, users can log their current location to your sheet. Once they have submitted their data, you can plot it on a map. So that's ultra cool. So that was one of the things that was a building block through here. Now, I do want to say, I've got great admiration for the Glide team. They do a fantastic job, and the features that they've got on this app are absolutely brilliant. Anyway, but that's actually only just come through in the last couple of days. So my next point of looking at this thing, while I was thinking about that, I came across this video here by Khazia Mahmood, about how to add geographical information, geocode, longitude, latitude, to Google Forms. So he uses Google Forms to actually get the geolocation via an HTML. So you open up the browser, and the browser, by opening up that page, is able to go and get the geolocation, and then he pushes it through to the GAS app to actually put that data inside the spreadsheet. And he's very generously put his a code down in here that you can actually access that. So I'll put a link through to this later. So I was impressed with that. So I actually went and got his code, and I got it written down over here in downloads. And if I click on that one there, I sort of rewrote it a little bit. Again, this is this thing with privacy. When you're using that get location, it says, do you want to allow this to happen? So you've got to allow it to happen, and something's happened, but not quite all that you want. Now, when you actually just go in and look at, Control Shift and C through there, and I might actually have to get that, and I want to do the debug console, and it's not doing it, which is really annoying. It actually gets, just try running that again and see if it works, and it's not. There's one thing in that switch through there, and sometimes it doesn't doing it, and that's annoying. Stop script. I don't want to stop script. I actually watch expressions. No, it actually gets it at this point in time. It blocks. It's got blocking it because it doesn't recognize Google.script, which is in the code that we actually want. And what it actually does, if we just go and look at that code, is it passes it to this function called getPosition. Now, through all of this, which is in the HTML side, it gets the location. It just doesn't pass it through to here. And the reason why is the way that he's used the form is different to me just trying to push it directly to the spreadsheet. What actually happens in the spreadsheet, because it's an asynchronous function, so what it does is it sends the request off to the server to say, go and find my location. And then that has to send back a reply. Now, that reply, or the send and the reply, could take milliseconds, or it could take 30 seconds or something like that, depending on how busy the server is. So automatically, normally with the code, it just does one bit of code and then just jumps straight through and does the next one. So what you actually have to do with an asynchronous function is that you actually have to do a callback. So when it comes back, it triggers something, and the thing could just be a logger.log, or something like a console.log hello world. And then when that happens, that's triggered that it will then run the next function. So it won't run the next function until you've done this callback function, is what it need to do. So anyway, for some unknown reason, I think it's trying to jump through to the next part of the code without doing that. And that's with me going directly to the spreadsheet instead of like this gentleman here's done, which has gone through the Google Forms. And I really just didn't want to open up a Google Forms and then open up something. I suddenly thought that would be quite tedious to do. So anyway, I had that trouble with that one there. So I wasn't happy with it, and I sort of left it there for a little while. But at the same time as exploring that, I came across this article here. So this was done in 2019, February. And it was geolocation. Would it be possible to somehow use the current location to interact with GlideApp? And Mark says, it's on the long-term roadmap, so we'll get there. But Stephanie Bonnet actually has this idea. In my case, the map would show the hotels that I list in the app. The user can see their own location on that map as well. It would allow them to find the nearest places where they currently are instead of browsing the list of doing a search thing. And I thought that's a nice concept, nice idea about the thing. Then I came across this, the gentleman below, and it's seriously cool, this man. Look at what he does here. We just click on this. I think this is brilliant. And this is what got me quite excited about Google Maps. He's got this location, and depending, I think it's a tennis court or something, or where they've got to take their kids to go and play a thing. And it's sort of hard to get to. So what he says is, where are you? So let's just click a point here. Now it works out a way to get there if you're walking. Now, if I was going by car, you've got to take a completely different route. Now, the thing with the car stuff that I don't really do much with Google Maps myself, really, but there's this orange bit here because of the fact that we actually have traffic lit switched on. So if there's heavy traffic or something like that, it colours up differently to there. So there's some quite smart things in here. Another thing that I've found in Google Maps as well that I wasn't aware of is that you can send the directions to your phone. So it can send to my phone, it can send to email, or it can send a text to me as well. So I was quite impressed with that. Another thing that I found out of as well, you can share or embed an app. And if you go to the share, you see it's actually got it's shortened the link through there. And if I just go and tap on that shortened link, it then expands that out to the original one of the start location, the end location, or for the destination and all of that. So it's doing some quite smart things through here. Another thing that I also found out about as well is that your timeline, if you've gone around with your location on and you've used this, any year back, it will actually have sensor data and give a list of wherever you were in the world and whenever you've done something. It's linking it on. You should, I think, be in your particular account on that one for that to actually work. So just be aware that there's a lot of information on where you've been through that. We're that one there. Another interesting thing that I found out as well going through that, I don't know what I'd do with it, but there's a location sharing. So if there's two of you going through a city and you're suddenly thinking it's a new city that you've been in, or a new town or something like that, one says, oh, I actually want to go shopping, the other one says, oh, I want to go to the pub or go wandering or doing something else, they can actually give each other their locations, and then when one's bored or whatever, they can just text the other one and say, meet you at a point in between or whatever, and do that. So I think that's a nice thing. So there's some nice, interesting features that have sort of developed over time that I haven't been aware of. Now, to me, the one that would be quite good is send the thing to the phone, because a lot of times I get an email, I've got to go and see a new job somewhere, and so I find that job, and if I'm not that familiar with a particular place around there, I would use street views to get views of a couple of buildings surrounding where I'm actually going to. And then I might plot a route or something like that. But it's nice to be able to push it to my phone. I actually went up to my daughter quite a while ago, and I tried using Google Maps. By the time I got to use it, there was no cell towers around, so I was a bit mogadored on that one. So getting that uploaded earlier, so that I was going into a place where it was a bit more remote, would have actually allowed me to find a place of where I was. So that's just a couple of things in Google Maps I don't know if you're aware of, but those are things that quite blew me away. So overall, in some ways, what this lady is doing of how the movement to associate with certain areas. So mine was really just a proof of concept. Can I actually just get this, and can I display it somehow? So this was a way that I can actually choose a location of where I actually want to end up with. I can say where I am in my current location. I would then get this URL update now. And I'm still using cycle. Maybe I'll use car. Oh, that's the other one. Now, I've got the plane on here. Now, the plane doesn't usually work unless you're going from cities with airports, like if I was going from Wellington to Auckland, or Wellington to Jakarta, or Wellington to Brisbane, or something like that. And the other thing is it gives you times, and it also gives you the cheapest price, depending on, so it sort of starts giving you flight information and things, which I thought was an interesting tool that I wasn't aware of. So I kind of put it onto there that I might explore it later with some other little functions. So I'm going to choose car now. So we're going to go done, and then hopefully I'll actually just update that one to the car park end, and then hopefully we'll get that updating. Yep. And then I'll just go onto that link. And then I think I've got the traffic on, so it's showing me some more delays or routes of doing methods that I can actually get there. So I'm pleased with where the app is. I don't know how to do templating at the moment, so I might try doing that, or I might just put a copy of the sheet up there so people can actually access it and do what they want, as I've done in the past. Now, where could you take this further? So I've got a website, and one of the things that I've got is some demos on maps and some other graphics and panoramas and data and some things like that. One of the things that I did before was this particular, and this was a proof of concept that I actually did in Excel, and then I developed it a bit further. What it was is it was a condition of it was. I was working with a local council, and we were trying to look at looking after assets over a period of time. So this one is based in, these are the three buildings that we have, and the bottom left-hand corner is pinpointed, is directly on the actual building itself. Now we've got a diamond for a door, a circle for a window, a square for a wall, and a triangle for a roof. And then so there's those on the left hand side. Now those are the actual physical materials, so the physical door, the physical windows. Since they're all being installed at roughly the same time, that's what you can do there. The column on the right is the finishes. So if the door is painted, then we can see when the paint needs to be replaced or the walls need to be replaced. The windows don't have that, so presumably they're aluminium, so they're pre-finished, and the roof might be pre-finished. It might be colour steel, or it might be a butanol or something, or dichromatic, or a clay tile or something like that, so you don't go and paint those. But over time, those things will actually have a duration. So what we can actually do is start looking into the future as to how those occur. Now, what I actually made on this one is as they go down through the condition, I start making the symbols bigger to kind of say, things need to be, you need to start reacting to these sooner rather than later. So this was an exercise that I actually did, and this was just on 3, and then I can look 10 years and then 20 years ahead, and then I can look 30 years ahead. and you'll suddenly see things switch over to being blue again, because somewhere between 20 and 30 years something was replaced, and so they've gone back to the new condition, etc., etc. So this was a thing of just showing things changing over time. So now when I was doing this, I suddenly thought, well, okay, then let's do it on a bigger scale. So this was done in Excel, and so I did a big mother on and using a database. So this was a database in the whole of Wellington, on these people's assets and where they are. And then I try to do a simplistic one as a proof of concept going through here. So I think I've actually put a label on some of them of what they are, the elements that they are, and then I've given some features. So I haven't been able to do, I hadn't done the condition and the condition changes and the symbol sizes changes. It was just icons on where they were. But what I'd actually found, so this is the point of this particular story, as well, I was actually doing the coding for this. I would have liked to have taken it further. And one of the things that you could have done within Google was, one, you could draw a rectangle. So instead of going to the database and refreshing all of them, whatever was in the rectangle in a specific area would be brought up. So that was speeding up the information. Also, it only gave you the information you wanted in a specific area. So it's a way of filtering down to a specific grouping of what you wanted. So there was also another one of that which would do it by radius. So you'd almost like put a pin in there, and then you'd say a radius of 1 kilometre or 3 miles or something like that, and then it would just almost draw a circle and actually say anything within that area, we'll pull that from the database and we'll start working on that. Anything further away we'll ignore. So we could do something like that within the GlideApp. Is that what we could actually do with this list here is that we've got the latitude and the longitude, we've got our point, which is this point here, and what we could actually do is just calculate the distance between these particular points. So when we come back to the actual map side of the things, we would actually say, like, we've got little points down here, and then there's some quite far away. Now what we could then do is actually say, well, as long as it's within a certain location, show those pins on the map, so you'll get a closer in zoom. Now you could do a double thing through here. One, you could do that, but obviously if you're walking, you've got a smaller distance or a radius of which you actually want to find things. You don't want to spend 10 hours walking to a place. You'd like, especially if it's a restaurant or something, you actually want it down the road or within a specific distance away from it. Whereas if you're in a car, more things are available. You can also filter out by category, so you can suddenly say, well, like in the article or in this particular one, Stephanie was actually saying she wanted to show hotels, what are the closest hotels that she's actually got. This one here, you could actually say, well, actually, there's a sort of example of what you'd use it on. She's suddenly saying, well, okay, then here's certain hotels that are within physical distance, but some might be going away from the centre of town to the suburbs. Some might be going into the centre of town. And so what you can actually do is if I'm near that one there, that hotel, what things are around? Are there lots of restaurants? Are there lots of bars or, nightclubs or different things of forms of entertainment or markets or shops or things like that? And then if you look at another hotel, you can also look at that. So you could almost suddenly say, right, if I make that the centre, what's around there? Because if suddenly you've got a cheaper hotel, but then you're actually having to travel quite a bit to get into town and out of town, or to go and do your shopping, or to go and find a laundrette or something like that, it's not going to be as effective. So you can sort of balance all of these things up. You've got a whole lot of information you make on. So one of the things as well is that you're not using the Google Maps API. All you are doing is actually just creating a string to do it. There are different methods with the actual API that you can actually do this, but just using a concatenated string that you're actually doing here simplifies what you're doing. There's a bit of stuff here that I actually haven't explored what any of this particular code means, and I might actually have to go and do a little bit of analysis on that at a later point in time. But the concept is that this is this one little feature of being able to give a pin of where you are. You can start doing some quite intelligent things, and especially with using the list elements. From here you can start suddenly saying it has to be within a certain distance. You can suddenly saying this is my mode of transport. You can suddenly saying it has to be in this category: restaurants, museums, art galleries, arts and things, so that you can start filtering it out. Now, I haven't quite figured out how I'd filter that out. I'd most probably do an if then or some if else type filtering that you could do in that, or else this could be on another page and you just pull in based on the request of where that location is, and depend on the transport and depend on your conditionality, it would then pull in to another sheet only the information that was relevant on that. So I hope that was a point of interest to you. Now, I just want to go back to talking about this email here. Now, I'd look and explore a few other apps, and my idea is that I'm trying to make my Patreon page talks about, trying to do things that anybody can build themselves. So trying to make things or code or sharing code if you've got to actually do a bit of coding, passing it around, and people being able to do bespoke things that they actually want to do. One of the things which I've done was gone to AppSheets, that's a more expensive equivalent of GlideApps that actually uses Google Sheets as a backend as well. And they had Signature, and I thought that was really cool. Now with Signature, you can actually do a whole lot of signing documents, so doing contract sort of stuff, and you can also do things like courier stuff and things. So I think that's a really, really good little thing to do. Well done them as a team. This is really, really good as well. I'm very impressed with that and some of the other things that they're doing. Now, the reason why I'm just tagging this here is, I made 2019, I got really interested in this and I built a whole load of apps that I just wanted to explore. And I made a whole load of videos, and I think there's something like 22,000 people have actually viewed those videos. So obviously people are using them, they're finding them useful, and that pleases me, the fact that I've been of help to other people. I just recently, Amazon came out with an app. And this is something that I just really want to say kudos to GlideApps about, is that I went and looked at the Honeycode app, and it's structured a little bit different. I think it's a little bit more corporate. But for somebody like Amazon, who have got so much muscle and so much things and a hell of a powerful coding area, their app was a shadow on what GlideApps can do. And I was so disappointed because I had high expectations of what Amazon can do. They've got some great other things. Their EC2s, their storage, their Lambda functions, things. Seriously cool stuff. But that app was very pathetic. And I actually had to go and look at Power Apps and start seeing what they can do. Now, Power Apps is seriously muscly, very expensive, and also I think to get the best out of the resources to link into a lot of the other Microsoft things into there, you've got to be a pretty good coder to actually be able to do some of the stuff that they do. But I think Power Apps has been around for about 5 years. GlideApps has been around for a year and a half, and Honeycode has just come out. That's the Amazon one. And what really, really disappointed me about the Honeycode one is that there's so many things around that they could have looked on and suddenly emulated in a way, and I think they've just dug themselves into a right little hole there, and very disappointed. So really, I just suddenly think the creativity that I've actually seen, that what people have actually built and created in GlideApps is absolutely brilliant. And I think there's a great community. And again, just like the ideas that were being thrown around and the people sharing with stuff like this, is absolutely fantastic. And so I've got a great admiration, and I wish that the team and anybody using it all the best in doing it. And I hope that video's actually been of help. So if you find the video helpful, can you please give a thumbs up? And also, can you think about subscribing as well? I think I get brownie points for doing that at the end of the day, where I'm actually trying. And if you'd like to consider about my Patreon page, I'll put a link for that as well. Thank you very much indeed.